here, we started from scratch when we created the community. So we designed this with the community. It's an open source. This project is basically, right now, is a static website, but you have a lot of interaction here when you can see your mentors and you can apply for a mentor, see details of your mentor, skills and reviews and resources from the mentor. As well, you have programs and you can see all this information. Okay, this is the website that we are having right now, but the idea with the platform is to have a dynamic website where we can make easier to update the content of the website, as well the managing of mentors, mentees, and registration data. This is, you can see basically, let me share a little bit the GitHub, oops. Sorry. Okay. We have our GitHub community where you can see their repositories. All of them are public. As you know, it's an open source. Everybody is welcome to start to see what we have there. So this is for the website. It's using GitHub Actions. And as you can read from the README, you can see how to contribute until we are created or we are done with the new website. The idea here was like to share and have as many contributors as possible. You can have a chance to learn and to support the community. Now, with the platform, basically we decide, okay, in order to have this new version, we would like to have the new or the top tech stack for our website where we can build with the community for the community, which means we are going to do as an open source when everybody that has the knowledge or doesn't have the knowledge and would like to get the knowledge, you can start supporting us. For example, this Figma project was one of our collaborators and volunteers that create, and she was bringing a lot of energy here, and you can see a lot of details. And as well, we do have many pages and content. For example, this is for the mentors, and this is our vision, how it's going to look like our website in the future, or hopefully sooner, and programs page, and the study groups, and even a specific page. This is kind of just an idea how it's going to look like, even for the events that we are doing now, past and future events, and also accessing the records, everything that we already have in our website, but as a static, then we would like to have more easy to maintain. One of the critical parts for our platform project, now thinking not just about the website, is actually the mentorship program, and even more steps. Is we want to make things more automated and then reduce the amount of manual work we are doing in the community for our leaders in order to maintain the mentorship program. Done and said that, I'm going to present you what we currently have. So we split from our GitHub here. You can see we have split it front end and back end. In front end, you can see the details, but it's basically React project with using Next.js and MUI template or schema. I don't have the good words for that. And for the backend is Java using Spring Boot, Java 21, and going with JUnit, Mock, Mockito, and many Jackson as well. So you can also check all the details here, how to start the application using Docker, and all kind of the fancy new things, code coverage, quality, all of that. We are also using GitHub Actions to deploy our application, to test, and that's it. Now going in deep to our new design here. So let me show. We do have, for example, REST API that is going to provide the page content. Now thinking more about the CMS, this is how it looks like the first REST API for page. And So this is just now how the page or the content it is. But we first started like a simple just to transit from our static data going to our microservice in Java. But we know we need a database, and that was the time, okay, let's start using a database. How do we going to model in this database, considering the content that we are going to have? Mentors, mentees, page, content, images, networks, and all of that, right? Also considering here, this is our Open API definition. We are using Swagger to expose all of that. So for example, this is the part for resources, content, and here is part of the platform when you are going to be able to update the content like this. But then going more in the direction from the CMS, which is going to be the website, we get all the GET APIs where the website is going to get access. For example, the landing page that I just showed, and then you can see how it's going to look like that. Going now to our kind of model. So this is more or less what we are going to have into our website. We have many pages, right? So just focus first in the pages that we are going to have. All these pages that are here, described here, the necessary page for us for mentors, study groups, or mentor registration, mentee, so all of that. It's more or less in this document here, so you can have an idea. That, like, basically we thought, okay, yeah, we have a page, we need a page table, probably, and then you are going to have landing page, mentorship overview. So all of those pages that some of them doesn't exist in our website and others already exist. We need also a way to manage resources, because every page are going to have resources, and the resources could be a PDF, could be an image, could be a link for a YouTube video, and I don't know what else, but that you can have the idea here. Going to the overview, so we split like what we started as phase one is the website, right? We want to focus first to get out or stop using the current website and have this dynamic. More or less, this is kind of our heading page, assets, resource. We have blogs, events, and kind of more or less what we think for tables, or that's up to us to discuss now, and then if you have questions as well. Later, or just getting the big picture here, is what is kind of our critical path for the platform. We need to maintain mentors. We have session tracks of mentors. We have mentees. Registration, a mentor can have many mentees. One mentee can be part of a study group and can also be assigned to ad hoc mentors, different mentors, for example. And this is also based on cycle. So every year it could be different. This kind of come again with all the problems, but idea also we are going to be able to manage notifications. For example, in our mentorship, we needed to ask to track sessions, or we need to check feedback, and we share Calendly of mentors, all of that. So this is kind of more about the platform idea. This is it's just a graph. We have way more things here if we think about blogs, managing the publication of the content. But of course, we want to start small first with the website, and then the mentorship, and later we see how it goes. Okay? Questions so far? Anyone have questions? I try to be fast so you can have an idea, but feel free to drop questions into the chat, or now I think it's more for us starting to discuss. Maybe Caroline, do you want to share any thoughts about this? Okay, we have a first question. Yes, Amel, yes, feel free to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This might be what I'm suggesting very formal, but coming from a tech background, you always have a board with all the things that needs to be done first, and then so then at least we have a list of what needed to be done, and as you progress them, and when they get done, you just move them along.
Yes,
so I think
we do have that. I just share with you what is public. But we are managing, like here you cannot see, but I can just give you an idea, maybe here quickly. We do have our project. So our issues are here, the ones that is already ready to be worked on, for example. But in our project, we also have here the issues or what we are going to do, what is in review in progress. So that's part of the volunteer calling. Actually, we don't have capacity right now to do all the proper steps for, let's say, to a project. Ideally, I would love to have that, but we need help in that. So I think we should have like some support for coordination. So this is also another reason we also call for coordinators, indicate that we can have epics. So for me, like coming back to the design, from the front end and the back end, we are going epics per category, basically. Our first epic is going to be about section. And we are only to cover what is already existing into our website. So everything that we have in our website right now is our first go. That is a phase one of our project. So that's kind of, it should be documented properly, of course. So for you to get an overview, what we have in here is our landing page, mentorship, code of conduct, FAQ, and then the pages of programs. Events is just a list page here, so but we wanted to start also with our blogs. And about a section is not all the sections that you can see into our Figma project, for example, but more about what we have it into about us. So I know it's a lot, but ideally that's the part like, okay, sorry, we don't have the epics or what is needs to come first. What we need to start first is basically getting to the landing page, getting the about us, and then from there we are going to continue with the order of tasks to be done. But for the scope of this session today, we would like to discuss a little bit about the data model, what we could do, considering like we could use SurrealDB. And if you, we are already using SurrealDB, but as you are aware from the previous talk, like SurrealDB can be relational database, could be non-relational database, could be hybrid. And now I think it's more for us, okay, do we all know those concepts? And then for us also as part of the platform, we are thinking, okay, should we do this a relational database? Should we do that as a non-relational database? And then I think that's part of the discussion goal for today. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Amel, but yes, we need priority and epics. We have to do that, but unfortunately, we didn't have defined that yet in good words. Sonami, you want to say something? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that because it's all volunteer work that we do, and we have a lot of volunteers who are very new to the project as well. So we had like issues of all set of severity. So that's why we were not focusing when we started with the project that everyone is invited and they can start with small tasks. But it's a time that we have the structure in place and we can now focus on the epics and the areas we want to develop in priority.
Yeah, so for example, now just checking the backend project, we have it, basically we just move from our website and create the resources here. So right now, imagine this will be our new table of pages. And that's kind of a part of the discussion. Okay, so we will have a landing page, but also we could have booking club page. So the schema and the detail is a bit of change from one to the other. We first thought, okay, we could create pages as a table. Then, okay, how we are going to structure that? Because the table for us is going to be a table path, which is going to be our ID. So we have landing page, and we have for example, about us, overview, team, and all of that are pages. And so thinking about the model here, I would take the idea of the page, then I'm going to have the content. The content could be a blob data, right? So if we think about Postgres, we could use as a blob, or we could use or we can create all of that. So for us, considering that our pages are different from each other, I don't think it would make sense for us to use like a relational database or all schema for all the pages itself. So that's why kind of we started designing this. Okay, a page is going to have an ID for the page and the page content. But a page can have assets, right? The assets in this case, ideally we are going to use here S3 buckets that we can store the assets. The assets will be basically our images. Imagine we have our homepage here. Those images, our logo, our banner image, those are all assets. And an asset, if you look in our API here, are going to be the link to the asset, right? So right now, here I'm using our own website to provide the asset. But if we are going to store that, and if we want to change this image later easily, we are going to store that in some place. So that's come with kind of how to design that model, or how it's going to look like this model prevent or getting like we need to create blogs. The blogs are associated, they're also resources for the blog. An event also has resources. But think later, okay, we have mentors. Mentors is part of our users, so it's our members, right? So our members can be mentors, but our members can be also core team, like our leaderships, our directors can be our volunteers, and can also be a mentee. So we would have another possible table, which is going to be mentors, but then a different type of data depends on mentor. So in this case, like if I think about NoSQL database, I could say like a key value store, I could just say, okay, a member has all the same attributes like name, email, and city, for example, but a mentor has skills. A mentor has key contributions, or like if you go into our mentor page, these are all data related to the mentor. So we have to store that as well. Okay, I'm talking a lot here. Maybe then, Caroline, do you want to share your thoughts about our data? How do you think that could fit? I know also Alex had some ideas. We can do many things. We can develop the data model in many ways if we are using SurrealDB. So maybe could you just share some of your thoughts, or what you think, like if you are using SurrealDB, how would you maybe propose the data modeling?
So I think with the mentor and the mentees aspect of it, I think that's a really good example and really good use case for Surreal, because it seems to me that there's both a filtering aspect that are kind of, you know, pretty strict, like I'm not available in July or whatever it is, you know, that's something you don't want to vector search on. So you just want to have a kind of a typical select query. And then there's also the trying to find people who you are most closely related to in terms of like what they want and what you want. And I think for that seems like that would be a really good fit for the vector searching. So I think there's lots of things that Surreal could do for the rest of it, but just purely focusing on that aspect of it, I think it's a really good example of how Surreal could be used. I'm slightly uncertain about a couple of things. One is the relationship between members and mentors and mentees. Presumably everybody is a member.
Yes.
Okay, so that's like a kind of, I guess.
I mean that here, imagine that comes from Java kind of idea. So we have our member interface where we're going to have all attributes of a member, but then a member can be like a mentor can be extend from a member, right? So then you can have specific attributes for mentors.
There's like a base class, like member is like
super class. It's like members is a super class and the others
Yes.
are subclasses.
Yes, because then even a mentor can be a mentee. Me, myself, I am a mentor, but I also am a mentee. And I need to have my data as a mentor, and I need also to have my data as a mentee. And my mentor is also associated to that. So, but I mean, if we think as a NoSQL database, I think we could just have mentors and, I mean, I don't know, like there's a different ways to design that. But if I would have in a relational database, I could have a table just for like a for key for mentors when it's associated to a member, and just say, okay, in this table all my mentors are there. If I'm thinking a relational database mentors, but plus the attributes of a mentor, and then for the mentee the same thing. So we'll have in the end the 3 tables. It is a relational database. But I think if it is a NoSQL database, we could have just the member, and we have a column for, let's say, for mentors or a schema for mentors, and then you can add all the data for the mentor as part of, and then you're going to member can be a mentor, can be a mentee, and put that in a single table, I think, or a single key value or something like that. I don't know. So that's kind of what could be done. Yes, Alex?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. You can actually have both in a sense of, if you think of a member as kind of like this super table, what you could do in the traditional SQL, you could have like tons of self joins. And there's this very interesting kind of like data modeling concept called the kind of like event schema, where essentially everything is based on events, and you like basically have like one table that has like a bunch of joins to itself. And it's actually not as crazy as you might think, because like, especially for a website, usually things are based around events. And in this case, you would have like a mentor-mentors, a member-mentors member, where you could actually see that like, oh, this member is mentoring a member. And so the member table is basically like connecting one person to one person. And then the mentoring information would sit into that middle table. And so you effectively, over time, you could actually see the graph forming of like who is mentoring whom. And even in SurrealDB, because it tracks versions over time, you could actually see that kind of like how things progressed over time, like later on, without having to set up anything. So that's definitely one option. Or you could have like a more inheritance approach where you just have member, and that connects to a table that called mentors, and connects to a table called mentees, and connects to another table with other things.
And in that case, I think I like this approach when you have the idea of graphs, and then you can see the connection between one node to the other. But how would be looking like the schema for that? If you have like, let's say these members, mentor, mentee together, and you can see version by time. I think like you can see, okay, a mentor have mentoring 3-4 ad hoc mentees, or it also has a long-term mentee in 2024, but also in 2023 there was 2 other mentees, for example. So, and the mentor is still the same, right? So how would you think that is going to look like this schema, I guess, because there needs to be a schema in that case, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in a sense of that, it would actually be 2 tables in this instance. It would be members and mentors. Because essentially you would have the kind of like table of the member, then you would have the mentor table, and you would have the out table of the member. But they're the same table, but it shows the relationships in terms of like, because it's a directed graph, you can see that like this member here is kind of like the mentor, and this member here is the mentee. And so like depending on how you traverse the graph, you could actually see who is mentoring whom. And so that's one way you can actually do it.
You want to say something, Hassan?
No.
Okay, so could you just turn on your mic so we don't, sorry, just to not confuse. Thank you. Okay, I see. But then, okay, so we would have, and how would look like, because where we are going to put the data? Will be all the data into members and mentors?
I think that's a really good way of doing it. I mean, one of the things is thinking about what you might want to use the members table for in the future. So what are your plans, say, a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now?
I mean, usually the data for mentors, we are just using to show the mentor profile here, right? But in the future, what we would like to do is also, so this is the website, but ideally we would have the platform, which is going to be authenticated as well. So all will be members in our community. And for now, people apply to mentor, right? But we have some cases that the mentor is not available, and we have to do still manual matching. Because, okay, we have mentors available, we have mentees that are in need, so we had to do some matching process in manual, like a manual way. And we would like probably to provide, when there is an ad hoc session, for example, we say, hey, this mentor is similar profile to the mentor that you are interested, or you could maybe book an ad hoc session with this mentor. And that's when like the data itself is more to expose the mentor, but also gives the information of for the mentee to know who is this person and what this person can contribute or can support the mentor. So, okay, this mentor has machine learning skills and also would like to support people that are switching to IT, right? So this is more like for searching, matching. And besides that, what our mentors do then is we do send a lot of notification and email. So for example, we need, there's part of the review. For example, let me see if I can keep here. So we have a review of the mentor, and we also share certificate for the mentors in the end of the cycle. So those are things that we internally do for the mentors, but there is not more use for that instead of showing to our website, for example. So I don't know if that is give you understanding about the use of the mentor.
Yeah, it seems like there's kind of two things. I mean, and they both use graphs, which is slightly confusing, but just to sort of clarify it, there is the graph that connects, you know, the mentor to the mentee. And if we do what Alex is suggesting, which I think is a really good idea, that we essentially, it like goes back on itself, but you have some information about what that relationship, you know, maybe some dates or whatever it might be. that's one way of capturing that data. I think the other thing, which is something that we talked about before the session as well, is part to actually help with some of the matching process, because that sounds like that's quite a lot of manual work potentially at the moment. And so I think really you could probably do both within the same, essentially within the same table, without having to like pull it out into a different schema. Would you agree with that, Alex?
I think they're different. I would tend to think that like when thinking about the schema in more kind of like graph kind of way, it really helps to think about like the actions. So you have a member, and the member takes the action of mentoring. So that action, the details about that action live in a separate table, but the member information lives in the member table. So you have like member mentors member, and then also you would have like member reviews member. And so like the member information is still the same, but now the review information lives in the review table, but like that kind of like relationships is kind of preserved. So you have like member reviews member. And then ultimately what you can do with, after you kind of like establish these actions, you can actually do recommendations in the graph. So for example, show me all the members that are similar to myself that have had more than 3 mentoring sessions that also know Python.
Yeah. And that would be really nice, because that's what we are, another idea we have in mind is actually we want to build the platform where our community, our members can also pair up with other people. So for example, we could see, okay, the profile of Nevena and the profile of Arzu are similar, and they can pair up, and then we can say, hey, don't you think you could join and do some pair session, and because your profile is similar, right? So that's a good idea. Amel, you have raised your hand. Do you want to say?
Yes, I was wondering that if we could, I'm not sure if this is possible in SurrealDB, but if we can store the mentor and the members details in a relational database, and their detail, the text, in a document or non-structured database. I don't know if that's possible. Something that
Yeah,
we thought about.
Yeah, it kind of make I guess in one sense of thinking of like when thinking of relational database and like non-relational database, is more thinking of like what would the schema look like. So in a sense of like in a relational database, things are stored as tuples under the hood. So in a sense of like basically like value, comma value, and then like another tuple value, comma value. And that is represented as like columns and rows, versus a NoSQL database is just like you have JSON and a schemized thing. But in SurrealDB, under the hood, it's all kind of like document storage, but you have kind of like all the constraints you want in a relational database. So if you want to have it schemaful, that's totally fine. We can define each field individually. We can define as many nested objects, nested arrays, and it's all transactional, all that kind of stuff. And so the kind of that's kind of like a distinction between like relational and document doesn't really apply as much in SurrealDB. So yeah, it would be interesting to know exactly kind of like what are the aspects of relational that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think you answered my question. Thank you, because yeah, thanks.
So would be your proposal would be something like that, Alex? So we have a member, then we have a mentor, then we have a mentor review, like a 3 separated table, but then the member.
It would actually be say like mentor, and review. So like it would just be a review table.
Just a review table. Okay.
Yeah.
Member, mentor, and review. And when we are talking about a mentee and mentor, you would use in that case a type.
Yep.
But then what if a mentor is a mentee, then you are going to use both?
So effectively, the way things are in SurrealDB is that when you make a graph relationships, you have like three essentially ID fields. You have a field called in, which specifies like where it started from. Then you have the ID of the table itself, and then you have the out, which is specified like where it's going. And so effectively with that, you can see the in field would always be kind of like the mentor, and the out field would always be the mentee. And so in the mentor table, you could always see who is mentoring who, because like you could be both a mentor and mentee, but in different relationships. And so in the mentor table, you could see that like, oh, like I'm mentoring this person, but that's a mentee of that person. And that would kind of like be kind of displayed with this in and out fields. But you could also kind of like, if that's like a little bit confusing, you could also have it specified as a type as well.
Because just to give you what I draw here, we have core team. The core team are the leaders, directors, but you also have volunteers, which also are different than mentor-mentee. And there is also type of a member. So that is where I think a type would be a bit confused, but if we use a relationship, then I think would work. If you say like you can create in mentor, in, I don't know, in volunteer, or I mean, if in that case, I think it will be, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say, for example, there is the core team, which is going to be a like another type, or it would be a flag saying this is also a core team?
Yeah, it kind of, I think it goes back to kind of what is the actions and the differences, because in one sense, the difference between core team and volunteer might be just a security permission. So like it could be the fact that like a core team member, when you're setting up your security permission, has an owner role versus a volunteer has an editor role. But in terms of a member, that might not have an impact, or it might just be that like that is another field you just have on the member saying like member has a field.
For example, here we have the list of our team members if we just think about the website, okay? But if we also look about collaborators, we also can have like it doesn't show here, but you can see in our website we have team, and this is the core team, and here are the collaborators. So there is a different, can say, the data we show in our website for collaborators and for the core team. But in the platform later is also, it will be maybe associated to different permissions, but also will be like we are going to coordinate volunteers, like, for the conference X, we are going to have a group of volunteers that are going to join, and then they are going to publish the content. Then they can post like the image and all of that into the platform, for example, right? So in this case, I mean, those are completely different from mentor and mentee, but they are still users into our platform, right? Mm-hmm. And then for leaders, they will have managing the content, or they were going to create their own program, for example, which is more data, but it's also there, they will be presented into our website, or so different aspects of the data. But if you think just about the data module here, then I understand that in this case we could, because of course I am a volunteer, everybody in the community is going to be a volunteer, so maybe we don't even need these things.
Yeah, I think it kind of like depends on how you use it. So one thing you could technically do, because SurrealDB supports just native arrays is you could just have field called role, and in that field you just have an array of like this person has a role, and these roles are core team member, event X, event Y, something something something, and then you can filter by like show me everybody that has a role core team, show me everybody that has the role event Y.
And you could also use that for mentor, like people who want to be available, for example.
Yeah, that sounds actually a good idea, I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it simplifies a bit, because then basically because the data still will be similar from mentor, mentee, and for core team, because usually what we show in the data is more or less like the profile picture, the position everybody has, and their profile social medias, which also everybody is going to have it, and that the play into the platform, then it would be completely different. Okay, yeah, sounds like a good idea.
This seems like it reduces the possibility of data being repeated, you know, having a LinkedIn profile in a volunteer table and a member table, for example.
Exactly. Yes. That's also the thing, because once you have, even if we think about a mentor, this will be part in mentors, or I mean in members, we already have like the social media, so it doesn't change from mentor to a member of the community. Everybody, there's their social medias that we allow to include into their profile, so it will be the same. Yes, Sonali.
I have a question to Alex. So when we mentioned about the relationship, so those relationships you mentioned about the based upon some action. So I'm just thinking, should we have like a action as a different sort of table or a schema, or a sort of tie? Actually, it has to be a different table. Based upon that action, we can have those relationships. Like it can be a review relationship, then it can be a long-term mentorship relationship. So that's kind of an action, and then we can have those graphs directed, I guess.
Yeah, generally, and any kind of like completely separate thing that you do is a good way of having a different table. And that's kind of like, yeah, mentor review. If even in kind of on the demo data that I created for SurrealDB, it was kind of like e-commerce thing where you have like two kind of like primary entities. You have like person and you have product, because like basically everything in e-commerce either touches person or product.
Yeah.
And so you have like person can wish list a product, person can put a product in the cart, person can order a product, person can review the product. And so all of those are kind of like graph relationships, but like most things fit into the person or product table, and you have these kind of actions in the middle. But then you have other things that are kind of like supplementary, like payment details. You probably want to have payment details in a separate table because that is a very sensitive information, and you don't want to have that in your person table. And so those might kind of like, depending on the use case, you can have things separate as well.
Celine, please, you can talk.
Yeah, I have a question here about the history. Alexander mentioned about that it will be saved somehow. Could you please explain? Because, for example, somebody had a history being a mentor, and now, for whatever reason, they're not going to be mentor, and again coming back, and we don't want to lose that, for example.
Yep. So that kind of like comes to the topic of audit logging, essentially, or like event-based things, where typically you kind of like have like created that, updated that, kind of like mentored at, all these kinds of things. And you have to kind of like remember to do that like while you're creating the table, and like you have to manually do that. And what ends up happening is that people might forget, like the system might fail, all these kinds of things. And there is this kind of like new thing, or it's an old thing, but it's like a new thing called temporal databases. I'm sorry. Which essentially track any change you do in a database in a storage layer. And so any change you make in the data, whether you do an update, create, read, not read, but like update, delete, create, is tracked. And there are databases that kind of like do this for individual tables. But what typically can't be done, or what historically hasn't been done, is being able to track all the relationships between all the different tables over time, because that is just like super compute intensive. And so we actually developed a kind of like storage algorithm to do that called BART, which is a variable adaptive radix tree, which is essentially taking parts of those documents and kind of like storing them individually in this data structure. I'm not sure if I explained that well enough, but effectively it's your kind of like storage layer taking care of and storing all your changes, as opposed to you having to do it in your query layer with created that and deleted that and all that kind of stuff.
Just to make sure I understand, because for example, in Bigtable, there is a concept called versioning. So every time you do a change, update, delete, insert is a version, right? So in the query, you can say, okay, I want to select, or you can define into a schema that you just want to the latest version, which is the latest status of your data. But imagine if you are talking about this audit log, would be in a way that while I'm selecting the data, I can say, okay, I want to know the history of that data, then I want to get all the data. Is that what you are saying, that SurrealDB provides as well, in a way that I can, while I'm querying the database, I can also get either the list version or I can have the history of the data?
Yep. Yeah, so you can do like select whatever version, and then like the time you want to do that, you can, if you don't do anything, you just get the latest version. But if you use the version clause and select the time, you get the version at that time. So in a typical sense, when say like in fintech or whatever, you need to produce like, oh, I sent a report to somebody and I need the exact data, exactly how it was at that time. You just basically do like select from that version, and then you have the data exactly how it was at that time.
Okay, nice.
What historically has been done at Google and other big companies is they literally snapshot the entire table and all the tables, and it's like super storage intensive, because you're kind of like taking a snapshot of everything all the time. What we are essentially doing is just taking snapshot of the changes, and that is kind of what makes it more efficient.
Okay, awesome. That's a great idea, actually. Or just I understand the concept, and it's easier for us then in that way. We could query, or if we want to create a report later, then you can understand what happened in 2022, 23, 24. So if your data will be there. Okay, Caroline, you had your hands raised before. Do you want to say something?
No, I think it's sort of been covered. I did have an additional question, which was something we talked about. I guess there was a plan potentially in the future that there would be a peer-to-peer, I don't want to use support network because that makes it sound bad, but you know, like peer-to-peer support.
Buddy.
A buddy, thank you, that's the word.
Yes, yes.
I guess that would be, is that something people opt into? I guess they would have to.
For example, we did before pair up volunteers.
Okay.
Because every new volunteer, they don't know much about the community. So usually we take an old volunteer with a new volunteer, they butt up, and then they support each other. So for example, even when we have a new leader, we get a node leader that they can share knowledge and explain. So for example, Arzo was helping a new evangelist that just recently joined and then share the knowledge with her. So that's something we do for volunteers already, but we could extend that for study groups, because for example, LeetCode, a lot of people are interested to study LeetCode. Then we can say, okay, I'm just studying. I would like a buddy to pair with me and also learn LeetCode and do some LeetCode challenge. So that's a real use case, and I think would be nice. I mean, I don't know. Do you have? I don't know if you had the time to present the search where we could do the matching, or if you wanted to share maybe in a quick minutes. I mean, we are over an hour now, but I think that also will be very interesting if you would like to share about how we would do that.
Yeah, so I created a table for just in SurrealDB with some fake data in it. But I will be honest, I got slightly confused about what the experience and interest numbers meant. But let's have a go. Yeah, we'll see how we get on. Let me use this one as up. Yeah. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me put it onto a different window so I can actually still see people. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is just fake data. I only put 5 people in it. So I defined the table in a similar way to the way that I was sent it. So I appreciate not everyone here will have seen the table, but hopefully most people have filled in the form in some ways. But essentially, it's got some information about who you are, what your job is, and then there's some like free text essentially for talking about your experience and additional information, things you're interested in. And then there's some integer stuff, like for example, how many hours a week you would like to do. And then there's some Boolean information. So for example, mail, mentor consent, study group consent, so that sort of stuff. So that's all goes very nicely into Surreal or into SurrealDB. Where I got slightly confused was around the experiences thing. So this relates to, in the CSV, I think ordering
like back-end, front-end, distributed system, machine learning. So this is more or less about the experience of the mentor, or I have experience as a back-end, as a full stack, and as a front-end engineer. So that would be like the top 5 for me would be back-end. That's the most experienced I am. Then go to the 4th. Okay, I'm full stack. Then I go to 3. I am also a front-end, but I also can collaborate with a QA, and I also can do distributed system, or I can do automation, so all of that. Interest will be like, okay, I want to mentor people that start their career as from or moving from another area to tech. So, or no, would like to mentor people that are in junior to mid-level, or I want to mentor people from mid-level to seniority. And this comes with the interest of the mentor. How I would like to support my mentees, or how I think I am a best fit for the mentees in that case. And skills, I don't remember.
So skills was like existing skills that you have, or I guess skills you want to work on. So like Python.
The language, yes, correct. The backend language, yes. The language that you're looking like Python, Java, and all of that, yeah.
Exactly. So I think there's, in a way, you sort of want to, the numbers are slightly, for the purposes of vector searching, where you're trying to find things which are associated or close to each other, we might need to think about what the numbers represent, because say Python is like it sort of doesn't really, it sort of needs to be extrapolated out, I would almost say, into like comfort level 1 to 5 with, say, Python, or interest, whatever it is, or JavaScript or Java. And so because the orders, there's no inherent pattern with, say, for example, the languages like Python is not, I mean, some people argue against this, but it's not like inherently closer to Java than it is to
no. Yeah, in that case for language, I think it's like, for example, imagine I do have so my most comfortable language is Java, and this is backend, but there is no relationship on that. And there are mentees that they apply, I want to learn Java, right? Or there are mentees that say, I want to learn JavaScript. And me as a mentor, I can support Java and JavaScript because I have 5 to Java and 4 to JavaScript, and I don't have any other language because I just want to support with those 2, right? So in that case, the mentee is saying, okay, I want to learn Node.js or Java, and we do have, and me as a mentee, I am interested into the front end, okay? So in that case, there is a correlation, but it's more like, I would say it's more like there is a score we could give to matching of the language and matching into the back end, front end kind of layer.
Yeah, so, I agree. And I also think, you know, for example, this bit with the mentor, your experience, or is the one where basically you're saying, I'm interested in, as a mentee, I want to get from middle level to seniority, for example, versus junior to middle level. Now that is inherently ordered. And so I think that's probably a reasonable thing to do, kind of to include in our vector search, because
I can tell you how we did manually, right? Okay, because there is some kind of criteria as the most important. I think the first one we try to match on the experience, like back end, front end, because that I cannot teach, for example, UX or CSS, right? Because my focus is a back end, right? But when I am a front end and I say I know HTML, JavaScript, and this is my skill 5, I can support with CSS, let's say like this. But the experience is more important. So I would start with the experience. Then, okay, I try to find all mentors that are front end. That's the first part of I do it. Then once I found all there are front end that are available, then I would match the ones per language, because then the mentee needs support with the language. It's important that if there is no match, then we go to the next step. Okay, there is no match for the language, but there is this mentee is learning, and then he's also interested in another language. Then we go to the second language as well, because that's also something. But language, because of course, coding community, kind of the language is kind of important. But in the experience level, back end, front end, it's also important. So the interest in that case, I would say is more like if both has the same score, then we use that to sort it out which one is best. Like, for example, if I am a junior engineer and my mentor is interested to go with seniority, we say, okay, but why not? We can try to match that if there is no other mentor. But I think it has different levels, I would say, like skills, which are the language, plus the experience are quite important. But I would start with 1 or 2 and then try to filter more. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do some sort of combination where we first do a filter, and then now that might be enough if we only have, say, 50 people. But yeah, say in, it's 1,000 people or 20,000 people, let's think big, then I think the filter, is not going to be sufficient to, once you've filtered on language and experience, And you've also removed like all of the other criteria, like your availability, say. You're then going to have to do some matching if you don't want to do it manually. And so I think if you don't want to do it manually, there's a few different things that we could do it on. Obviously, I think if it should be on, like, say, seniority is a good one, because I'm sure, just my feeling, that somebody who is experienced in mentoring somebody from mid-level to senior level has lots to tell somebody from junior to mid-level, but perhaps is less useful for somebody who's like never programmed at all in their life. Not saying they can't do it, but those things are closer together. And so I think that's something that could be done on. And then I think you could also, you've got possibilities to add in additional things. For example, like time zone might be one that it becomes important. Or I guess like filtering on language, so that I could see that there would be more things that you might, when the pool is big enough, there are more things that you might want to filter on and also match on. And like also maybe job title or something. Maybe it's more similar. Maybe it's more useful to have a mentor who has a similar job title to you, rather than like I don't know, maybe like data scientist to DevOps engineer is like a bridge too far. Whereas
but then that also goes into the experience, because we have like a machine learning data scientist, but the job title, I think, is also something that the mentees would consider, plus the experience, right? Because imagine that I am a mentee, I have 5-year experience, and my mentor is 2-year experience. So I think there wouldn't be a proper match unless this person is like a specialist for those 2 years, right? Or if I am changing career and I am a junior in front end and I want to move to back end, I have 3 years, but my mentor has 2, but in different roles, so it doesn't apply. I think for what I think here would be more like similarities. There is not exclusion, but if you say, okay, for Adriana, we have like some similar mentors profile that would be nice. Maybe it would be a good match for you. I think that would be nice.
I think that would be good. And I think the ordering of how, like, say, I mean, again, I'm thinking big. I'm thinking this is going to take over the world. Like, if we want to have, maybe it's really useful in the future to find like the people who are the top 3 most similar or most likely to be a good fit for you. I think that opens up lots of different possibilities, and also potentially adds in additional things that you could put onto your form, collect information about. That becomes later on something you might want to match on. And I also was thinking about when Alex was talking about the members, and like if we keep everything focused around the member table, and they have they then do things like, for example, the volunteer one. You talked about matching the volunteers together. I think you could pretty much use something. Obviously different criteria, but the sort of fundamentals are the same. Like, you want to maybe find someone, in that case, not necessarily close to you. You want to find someone far away, like someone who's got a ton of experience at volunteering if you've got none. So I think that opens up some interesting possibilities. Sorry, I realize we're about to run out of time, but
but it's very interesting. I think that's really a good case. Like if we keep the data based on what we are talking about, it would be very easier for us to apply those extra queries and then do that and show in similarity, and even share like we can say, for example, because we struggle a lot with matching, right? So we can say, okay, we found those mentors, all those mentors that you apply is not available, but we have similarity. Would you be interested to have mentorship with this or this mentor? And then we can forward to you, because that happens a lot. unfortunately. But that will be very helpful, I think, for that, and for the volunteers as well, because even we can just say, hey, because we have, for example, now on Slack, we are having coffee chats, and we say, okay, let's do a round table where you can have a coffee chat with different members in the community. But then that's also could be something we can say, you know what, Amel and Sonali are interested in the same topics as a member in the community. Why don't you pair up and have a coffee chat just for networking? And I think that would be a great idea. Yeah. So I'm very excited and curious to experimenting more of that, and also to put that into our page.
One thing I would say that one thing that you could do with the volunteering, not the mentoring thing, is it could be like bi-directional in many ways, because you could allow queries. So like presumably you want to like not do manual matching as much as possible. Seems like a pain in the ass. So
yes,
you know, it would be great if you could expose some ability that not only when somebody signs up as wanting to be a mentee, that they can find a mentor, but actually the other way around.
Yes, that's also something we are doing. We are facing, because every time a new mentor joins, we can say, okay, we have a waiting list for mentorship, and then the mentor could say, you know what, these two profiles I think I can mentoring, and that would be really a good case, because now we are also having mentors available, and we don't have mentee, because sometimes they just drop out also. So the other way around, I think it will be very, very good as well. So share, okay, these members are looking for mentee, and then they would see like a similarity, and based on the interest of the mentor, that would be really a good case for sure. Okay, now I just wanted to finish. I think we are around the end of the session, but again, just for your understanding, we do have the backend part of the project, which is built in Java, Spring Boot, and going to the database, SurrealDB, and going in more microservice, or like right now we are just having one service. But anyway, we have a room for many challenges and many problems. We are looking for people to collaborate and to support us. The same goes for the coordinating the projects, and also to the front end where it's building React. But again, for the ones that I see here that says, okay, I don't have experience with this and that, you can just go and my headset just died. Let me just change a bit. Can you still
Yes,
hear me?
we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so then there is no rule. I think it's more about you can look at the issues, you can join our sessions. We are going to start having syncing from time to time. I mean, from the back end, we are every Monday at around this time joining. That's exactly the reason we are choosing the workshops to happen at this time. You can reach out Sonali here, but please also fill up the form for volunteers if you are interested, or just come talk to us in Slack. I hopefully maybe Alex and Caroline will join us more often for discussion or for those tech discussion, which is amazing. I think I learned a lot, and it was very interesting. But we need all of you in the community. It's open. Everybody is welcome. Either you don't know, or you just wanted to know. Come and let's build the community, our community together. Okay, so thank you, and reach out to us, and I hope to see you all in the community. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.